Welcome back to World Talks here on TVP World. I'm Anna Kalczyńska. As the war in Ukraine enters its fourth year, peace negotiations between Kyiv and Moscow remain stalled. Despite significant international efforts, including a faltering US-backed ceasefire proposal, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky stands firm in calling for enhanced military support. During a recent visit to Prague, he announced Ukraine's expectation of receiving 3 million artillery shells from Allied in 2025, including 2 million from the Czech-led initiative, and highlighted the establishment of a joint Ukrainian-Czech F-16 pilots training school to strengthen defense cooperation. We now turn to Dr. Andreas Umland, a leading analyst at the Stockholm Center for Eastern European Studies. Good morning, sir, and thank you for being with us again.
Good morning, and thanks for having me again.
Our pleasure. So, given the continued stalemate in the negotiations, what is going to happen now? Is Moscow trying to wait out the West, and what could be the outcome of this strategy?
Yes, Russia is playing with the West. It's showing a negotiation theater here for Western audiences, also introducing these short-term ceasefire proposals. And this is all made to confuse Western observers, Western politicians, diplomats, and to create a situation where people think, well, both sides are not really interested in ending the war. But in fact, Ukraine has, of course, made these ceasefire proposals, unconditional ceasefire proposals, which Russia has rejected, although not explicitly so. And the war is going on, and the situation just illustrates the, I would say, failure of the Trump administration to find here a middle ground between Russia and Ukraine. Moscow is not interested in a middle ground, it's interested in victory.
Exactly. So Donald Trump has said recently in an interview that the negotiations are going better with one side, not so good with the other side. He's not going to be specific on that, which side is not as cooperative as the other. But during his visit to Prague, President Zelensky reiterated the need for more military support. As I said before, that would include the artillery, the F-16 training, but there's an ongoing discussion about sending Patriot missile systems to Ukraine. In your view, how would such a move impact Ukraine's defense capabilities and the broader course of the war?
Yes, air defense is one of the central issues here in Kyiv. I'm currently in Kyiv, and even the capital, which used to be rather well defended with anti-aircraft artillery or missiles, is now in a situation where Russia manages to actually hit the city. With other cities, it's actually much worse. Cities like Kharkiv, Dnipro, Kherson, Zaporizhia, also many smaller settlements are being hit almost daily or nightly, one should say, by Russian glide bombs and cruise missiles, drones, ballistic missiles. So the air defense is really a central issue, and the more of these Patriot systems there will be, or other air defense systems, the better, and then Ukraine can defend itself. And Russia will not stop attacking unless it is under pressure. And as long as this pressure doesn't come, Ukraine has no other choice but to strengthen as much as possible its defense, including air defense.
Right. So this help, is it really coming? And is it coming not like previously in a short and run, and and in a very scarce numbers? Because Donald Trump has just lifted the ban on military aid. And how about the long-awaited Taurus missiles from Germany? Keeping Boris Pistorius, known for his hawkish stand on Russia in the newly formed government by Friedrich Merz, is perhaps a sign of a more engaged help for Ukraine on the part of the alliance.
One would hope so, but unfortunately, the experience is that there is often a lot of talk.
Unfortunately, we are experiencing some technical problems, but we will work on this. And in the meantime, I suggest we take a lesson of Petr Fiala, Prime Minister of Czech Republic, who says that Ukraine is not only defending itself.
I assured the president and his delegation that the Czech Republic will continue to stand firmly on Ukraine's side in its fight against Russian aggression, and that we are well aware that Ukraine is not only defending its territory, its independence and territorial integrity, but is defending the whole of Europe. As far as military cooperation is concerned, we're ready to deepen our contribution to the training of Ukrainian soldiers. We agreed today that we will focus, together with our partners in the Coalition of the Willing, on training Ukrainian pilots, which is very important. We'll be training Ukrainian pilots on the L-39 aircraft, but also on the F-16 aircraft here in the Czech Republic.
So we're coming back to the interview with Andreas Umland. So my question would be, do you think that the Western alliance has been consistent and strategic enough in its support for Ukraine? Or is there a certain fatigue, or perhaps, or fragmentation that could weaken Ukraine's position?
Unfortunately, consistency is only so far visible in rhetoric. Rhetorically, it's sort of not bad, at least in Europe. In the US, of course, now even the rhetoric has changed. But when it comes to actually realizing the implications of this rhetoric to materialize, that this is more difficult. We will now have in Germany a new government, and perhaps there will be a change. The problem is now, however, that the German public opinion has taken a somewhat inconsistent position here, in that the majority of Germans are in principle for supporting Ukraine, including with heavy weaponry. But at the same time, a majority of Germans are against delivering the Taurus cruise missiles that Ukraine has requested from Germany, and that could be usefully deployed here by the Ukrainian forces, because they have special capabilities that other similar weapons do not have. So we'll see how this will develop. The rhetoric certainly from Merz sounds good. Whether this will then quickly and effectively materialize is, however, still an open question.
And what do you think would have to happen in order for this resistance to be overcome? Why are so reticent certain politicians as to the use of the effective weapon against Russia?
I think actually on the political side, there is now a change in Europe after this unfortunate conversation in the White House between Zelensky on the one hand and the US president, vice president on the other side. There is a certain change in, I would say, in the mindset of many European politicians, not all certainly. What still has to be done, I think, is a public relations, a public communication campaign that explains better why Western countries, West European countries, let's say, should support Ukraine, why this is important, what are the implications of this war, what this means beyond just helping the Ukrainians, but what this also means for European security, for the rules-based order, why people need an international rules-based order, why something like what Russia is now doing in Ukraine, annexing territories and terrorizing the civilian population, cannot be allowed, and why this is actually in the self-interest of West Europeans to become here more engaged, also, of course, for all other countries in the world, because this is not just about Ukraine, but about the world security system.
Exactly, this is what Patriot just said. But some international voices continue to advocate for a negotiated settlement, possibly involving territorial concessions still. I would like to turn now to what has the US President Donald Trump just said, and he reiterated on many occasions about the Nord Stream pipeline. This topic keeps on coming back. And recently Trump said that he, and this is a quote, blew up this project, the Nord Stream pipeline, by sanctions. And he repeated his belief that Russia wants peace and praised the Kremlin's proposed 3-day ceasefire. So what is the US stance right now on the negotiations? And why this topic of Nord Stream keeps on coming back?
I would say, frankly, that this is yet another expression of the simple incompetence concerning European and East European affairs in the White House, because in my estimate, this project is clearly dead. Nord Stream will not go online again unless there's a regime change in Russia. Only then I can imagine this still being used. But this is now, I would say, a fantasy that has appeared again, and also, of course, in contradiction to the policy of the first Trump administration when this project was sanctioned, and now suddenly it's coming up as an instrument for peace. But this will not happen in the way that the White House is planning this. What needs to happen first is more pressure. Economic, military, financial pressure on Russia to come to a negotiation that makes sense. And then perhaps at a later stage, and I would think only after regime change in Moscow, one could perhaps again think about these pipelines in the Baltic Sea.
Andreas Umland, thank you very much for joining us this morning, sir, and thank you. Have a good day then. And we thank you for watching this edition of World Talks here on TVP World. Thank you so much. And please stay tuned for more news and other interesting commentaries.